So, Jason, I have a question for you. How many times do you actually listen to the podcast before it's been edited?
Oh man, just way too many times. Probably about 3 times within the first 3 or 4 hours directly afterwards. I'm starting to get used to the sound of our voice now. So
it seems whenever I stop recording and then I'll go off and do something else and think, oh yeah, I'll get around to listening to the podcast. I'll get a message from you saying, I've listened to the episode 3 times already.
Well, I've got to make sure that we sound good, mate. That's what it is. So, and then apply, whatever equalization we need to do to make our voices sound awesome. So, yes.
Excellent.
Too many times.
Too many times.
Another big week.
Yeah, big week, and just starting to record episode 3 now.
Man, episode 3, we must be famous by now.
Surely.
Surely. Look, during the week, or last episode, we ran a competition on Instagram for a Nisi Filters starter kit.
Yeah, and we got quite a few entries. We got over 100 entries on our Instagram account, which was pretty good.
Yeah, definitely. And I think quite a few of the entries actually, it was a tough choice for us to pick a winner here. Got to mention one guy in particular actually submitted 21 images in a row and created a nice little grid, which did make us smile. It also made us laugh as well.
Yeah, so it got our attention, but
it definitely got our attention. But as an individual image, I think we've definitely chosen a winner, one that we can both agree on as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Would you like to announce the winner?
Look, yes, absolutely. So at Jess Ward Photo, for her Merryweather Ocean Bath sunrise in Newcastle. Congratulations. This image definitely made us both smile. Beautiful sunrise from Newcastle. So we'll be sending you out a Nisi V5 100mm starter kit for submitting that. And thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Jess. And yeah, I enjoyed it as well. I've only been to the Merryweather Ocean Baths once, and I loved getting a sunrise shot from there. It's a beautiful place, and yeah, seeing that shot was good to see, and thank you for entering.
Absolutely, I think we could have probably given away 5 of these. From the image, the images that we did have submitted, but we've actually this week got another episode sponsor.
Yes, our new episode sponsor is Australian Photography Magazine, and they are generously going to be giving away a 12-month subscription to their magazine, and we'll run another little competition during the week for this one.
Absolutely. Look, we're going to do the same thing again. So across Instagram, submitting a new image from the date of the post that we make on Instagram. So it has to be a new image this week that you've posted on your Instagram account, mentioning at Project RAWcast and also hashtag Project RAWcast to enter. Do the same again. We're looking for a landscape image, again, that makes us smile. Big thank you to Australian Photography Magazine, a great publication. Lots of great tips and reviews within the magazine each week, and also on their website, which is australianphotography.com.
And I subscribe myself, and actually my subscription is up for renewal quite soon, so I'll have to listen to this podcast to remind me to do that again.
Can I enter?
I wanted to enter the last one.
Yeah, I don't think that's fair, though, is it really?
No.
So yes. No, look, so good luck to everybody who enters this week on this one. We hope to see more than 100 entries this week for this. And again, thank you to Australian Photography Magazine for supporting us this week. So.
And yeah, thanks to everyone that entered our last one. We really did enjoy seeing everyone's submissions, and there was some really great landscape photos there. And it was good to have conversations and see people interacting with us on Instagram. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Now, look, a topic that I think many people can relate to here, and while everybody's sharing their images with us on Instagram and basically, realistically, giving us permission to repost them when they're a winner of a prize, Kieran, when somebody shares an image of yours and doesn't give you credit, how does that make you feel?
It used to kind of annoy me quite a bit, and I guess I was thinking, this isn't your image. Why are you sharing my image? Like, at least credit me or something. But these days, I do get my photos shared around a bit. I hashtag quite a lot, and it's been a way to actually get my images out there, is to have people share it and enjoy the image. And occasionally one crops up where someone shared it on either their own feed or on just a normal sharing feed, and either the credit's wrong or they just completely haven't mentioned my name, and it can be a little annoying. And
look, absolutely, I think as a professional photographer, your image portfolio realistically is your money making tool. So I personally think within social media is a great way to get your name out there, and the entire ecosystem of social media, in particular Instagram, works off people sharing each other's images and giving each other credit and driving traffic back to each other's accounts. Now, if you, though, were to find an image of yours online or on a commercial publication somewhere and you hadn't been given credit for it, what would you think?
If it was on a commercial publication, something that they were obviously either making money off or using that image to sell something, then I would definitely be contacting them and either getting them to take the image down, or depending on, I guess, which publication it was, whether they knew what they were doing was wrong or whether they actually tried to make an effort to find out whose image it was. Because sometimes it could be an image that they found through several different channels and it's almost lost. It's difficult to find out who it belonged to. But that's one reason I do watermark my images as well. I don't sort of plaster a big copyright over it, but I do have a small unobtrusive watermark on it, so it can be traced back to me.
Okay. Look, I've got an example of this that's just happened to me recently, actually. A rather large UK-based newspaper had used an image and a YouTube video of mine within their online publication without requesting any permission to do so. They literally stripped the video out of YouTube, didn't apply credit to me or didn't provide me credit. They also published a photo of mine on the same article right next to some advertising. And I never got credit for this. And the way I found this was actually through an online service called pixy.com, or pixsy.com, which is an online tool which actually searches and scans your image library for violation or misuse of your images online. You can easily identify where images that you've loaded into this tool are. Now, I've in particular got my Instagram account connected. I've also got my website connected to this particular tool, and every week I get a report sent to me by email of where it's found my images elsewhere online. So it's a great little tool, and behind pixy.com there's also a team of lawyers who are quite happy to handle copyright violations and send out invoices and chase up for a pro rata fee. So this is something for me that actually comes in quite handy. And you know, if you want to protect your image library, this is a great tool to look at as well. So,
I guess one problem I have, well, not really a problem, but I do sell my images through Getty as well. So I have quite a large library on Getty Images, which means some of those images will be sold and appear just about anywhere. And I've actually had a case where I've been waiting at the airport and I saw a familiar photo come up on one of the LCD screens, and I thought, it just flashed before me, and I thought, wait a minute, that looked really familiar. That looked like one of mine. And so I sat there staring, waiting for it to come back up, and sure enough, it was a photo that I'd taken and in an ad. And I thought, wait, how did that happen? And so I had to go through my Getty images, find out what it actually sold and whether I was selling it. And it turns out that it had been sold recently and it was all legitimate, but it was just an interesting thing to happen, just to be randomly sitting around somewhere and suddenly see one of my images pop up in an ad.
Did you start signing autographs from everybody walking past who saw it as well?
I did look around to see if anyone else had noticed, but then quickly realized that no one else would care.
Hi, hey everybody! This is my image. I
took that.
It'd be actually a pretty cool feeling to walk through the airport and see your images plastered up on the wall. That wouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, it was nice it kept me going for a day. Nice smile on my face.
Cool. So Look, this is something particularly with Instagram. I've had this happen many times where I've actually seen my images stripped off my account and posted onto other personal accounts without providing credit. We used to have a group of us here in Tassie that looked after each other, and if we saw each other's images, we kind of share it around with each other. And then the people who had ripped off our images would get quite a few. We're talking 5 or 6 different people all commenting on that particular post to ensure that we got their attention. If they decided to block us, they had to block quite a few of us because we all had multiple accounts. So we actually literally were looking after each other and watching out for each other's images. And it's kind of a bad feeling to see your images, being used somewhere else that, especially without permission, if you've never given permission.
You feel violated.
Absolutely. Like this week I've actually been asked by a guy who wanted to repost some of my images on his website with an interview, and he made it very clear to me right from the start that he offers advertising through his website, so he's done the right thing by doing so, just saying that his pages are monetized, which was great, like getting permission for that. But if I ever saw my images on a website or being used in a method with advertising next to us or offering commercial products, that's where I would draw the line, absolutely, for that. I would be handing that one off pretty quickly to somebody who handles that sort of thing, to send out an invoice and chase some money from them. So
I think the Instagram community is quite good as well when they do see a lot of images that they like, and when they do see an image that's been shared and they know it comes from another photographer that they're following, they tend to let that photographer know, or they mention on the post saying, hey, this is actually this person's photo, and then they tag that person and so they can see. And so it's good just to have other people looking out for you as well.
For sure. Look, I saw earlier this week an article on Petapixel where there's potential discussions around having an actual share button within Instagram. Now, obviously, we've got to be careful here that Instagram doesn't entirely become Facebook, but I think the ability potentially to have a share button and the credit and potentially the likes on any given image when an image is shared around Instagram actually count back towards the original poster of that image would be pretty cool. So say, for example, if Beautiful Destinations were to share one of your images tomorrow, the likes that they got on their feed would actually count back to the original source of that image as well, and you could potentially accumulate a lot more interaction on your own image. I mean, that's something that's been thrown around a little bit lately, and something I think which is actually worth looking into as well. So
that definitely would benefit the photographers that are sharing their own work. And at the moment, the system with feature hubs that share photos around is quite good, but yeah, being able to transfer those likes back to the photographer would definitely be a bonus for them.
Well, it's good when people do the right thing with these feature hubs. That's the biggest thing to remember. Obviously, feature hubs are a great way to gain a bit more exposure for your own account and for your own work, and it's a fantastic part of Instagram that the ecosystem kind of allows to drive traffic to each other. I mean, I operate 2 feature accounts myself with one of my mates here. I know you're a mod on a bigger feature account here in Australia. So if people are doing the right thing, it's actually hugely beneficial. But when you find your images without credit, or even images of your own that have been edited and posted elsewhere, and they've made it look, it's not a very nice feeling at all. So
no, that's pretty bad. And for every share that you get that's legitimate, there's probably about 20 that you'll never see. That's
the thing. It's very hard to find them, quite simply, if people don't give you credit, because it's not hard to screenshot an image or use Dinsta.com or any other service to download an image off Instagram and repost it yourself. So, but I mean, that's a social ecosystem as a whole, and it can be hugely beneficial outside of Instagram or Facebook or any other social platforms. Though on a website, I think if there's a commercial application or a commercial service on the pages where people are posting images and they haven't gained permission, I think that's kind of where the limit can be drawn as well.
And this, I guess, talk of copyright and people using things that aren't theirs, it kind of reminds me of something that's happened to me recently with a email from PayPal that I got.
From PayPal?
Apparently from PayPal.
Okay, this sounds legitimate already.
I was out on the roads during the week and I had my phone on me and I get my emails on my phone. And so I quickly had a look at my emails and I had one from PayPal saying that my account has been limited. There's been some unusual activity, so I can no longer receive or make payments through PayPal. And this has actually happened to me before when I didn't have all my information sorted. So I got this email and thought, oh, like not again. I run my business or part of my business through PayPal, so I need this to be working. When I finally had some time to sit down and have a look at this email, I read it and had a link saying, here, log into your PayPal and sort this out. So just rushing through it, clicked the link, came up with a thing to write in my email and my password, and it had everything sort of just sitting there as when you've got your password saved through Chrome. And I thought, I'll just enter in my password anyway. I can't remember what it was, see if it works. And I got let through, so I thought, yep, that's my password. And then it was a PayPal site that was asking for my address. And it was about here that I started thinking, this seems a little too easy to get in. So I'm going to close this down and actually go through PayPal. And so I logged in, I went to paypal.com, logged into my account, and couldn't find anything about my account being limited. And
okay, so, did you change your password?
I did change my password, but...
do you want to tell us what your new password is?
My new password... Hey, wait a minute.
I almost got you, didn't I?
Almost. I went back to the link in the email that I got and also noticed a few other little things that weren't quite right that I didn't check before, such as the email account that it came from, which didn't seem very legitimate. But I clicked the link again and had my email, and I just pretty much mashed the keyboard as the password. And sure enough, I got taken to the next stage, which was entering your address and your credit card details.
How much money did you give them?
I didn't get that far, but it was almost...
Did you buy any Russian brides?
I did not buy any Russian brides.
Not this time. Okay, that's great.
No Russian ones. But it just made me think of how many people these scams would actually get, because I can usually spot them a mile away, but just this one time that, because I'd had something similar happen before with PayPal, that I just thought, I need to get this sorted.
Well, I think these scammers play on this exactly that. They send out 10 million emails, and the 1% of people who are crazy enough to open them and actually enter their password makes them enough money to keep these scams going. Remembering most financial institutions aren't going to ask you for a password. So, mate, I'm worried about you here.
Well, that was the thing. It wasn't asking me directly in the email for any information to email back to them. It was sort of saying, here's the link to PayPal, and just being in a rush, it nearly got me. But I guess it's just something to think about for anyone out there who does use PayPal, to really be vigilant when you get any kind of email from PayPal asking for any details whatsoever, to not follow the email and go directly to the site.
Yeah, look, I think any of those sort of emails, the easiest way is just to press delete on them. There is no financial institution around the world these days that's going to ask for your password or personal details via email. But look, I see this all the time as well. And in my experience of online marketing, I use payment gateways, payment portals. I help clients set up e-commerce systems. This is a huge thing within the internet as a whole, is how easy it is to be scammed. It's not hard to create a template with a logo on it. I would typically myself look at the actual email address it's coming from. I think it's fairly easy to identify spoofed emails. If you're using a platform like Gmail or Hotmail or any of those major online email systems, they will actually filter out a lot of this kind of junk anyway. They will filter out emails that show a different header in it, or without getting too technical, a reply to email address that is different from the email address that it's actually come from. They do a good job of it to start with. So, but yeah, it's definitely something you have to be careful of. Again, I hope you did change your password and whatever.
I did, and it turns out when I entered my password in the first time, that wasn't the right password. So that was a good thing as well, that they didn't even get the old password.
Yeah, many of these systems too now have two-factor authentication, where you try to log into their portal, they'll actually send you a little message via either text message. Some banks actually have little dedicated hardware devices that they do so with, and you've got to enter that second password to get in. I think the password systems online need to be overhauled to begin with. I mean, passwords are such an antiquated process of logging in and securing yourself. So many scams actually exist, and people make money from this because of the 1% of people that will actually be crazy enough to go and do what these scammers are asking for. So I hope you recover from it, and hope you've learnt your lesson.
I've definitely learnt my lesson.
Yeah. So look, when we're out and about shooting a lot of the places that we shoot from are quite popular. Quite often there'll be a lot of people. I'll give a perfect example of this is the Great Ocean Road, standing up above the 12 Apostles. As a photographer, you need to deal with being in a public space and deal with other people around you quite a lot. I wish we didn't. I'm not very tolerant of other people who get in the way of my camera, as several people have learnt when they're with me.
I've learnt a lot about you since traveling to popular places with you.
Something that really annoys me about this is as a photographer, most people are quite aware of their surroundings, aware of other people, aware of where the other people have set up, or ensuring that you try to get out of people's way. Something that really annoys me is when people jump in front of my camera when it's clearly set up on a tripod. This happens quite a lot to me. Things like even viewing platforms. Another perfect example is Ted's Lookout, a very popular viewing platform along the Great Ocean Road that vibrates when you walk on it. How do you deal with other people being around you? Because I don't deal with it well.
I probably deal with it a little better than you. I suppose I've gotten used to it. I do shoot a lot in the city, so there's always going to be people around, and I found that even if people do walk in front of the tripod or walk near me, they're just passing by. They're not staying in front of it. They're not setting up a picnic in front of me. They're going about their day. And even if you're walking around the city or anyone else walking around, you're not on the lookout for whether you're getting in front of people's photos. And it's very easy just to be minding your own business, and you wouldn't even know whether you're walking in front of someone trying to take a shot.
See, I am aware myself. I'm actually quite aware of this because I know how much it annoys me. I actually like to look around and make sure that I'm not jumping in the way of other people's photos.
But you are a photographer, so that is something that is just ingrained into your mind about whether you're getting in someone's way. But the average person isn't setting up tripods quite frequently, and I tend to find even if people are trying to take a shot and everyone's walking past, it's probably easier to just keep walking through than to wait and maybe be getting in their shot and even stop halfway through and think, oh, sorry, am I getting in your shot? And it's just easy to just go through, and even if they are mildly inconvenienced, it's not that big a deal. They'll forget about it. Well, most people would, but I think you'll be remembering faces and putting them in a little blacklist of some kind.
I think you're in a blacklist of at least one person here in Tassie, where we were shooting at the Tasmanian Museum and Art Gallery, and he wasn't actually shooting for quite a long time, but decided he wanted to shoot as soon as you moved. I witnessed him wanting to push you in the water and along with your camera gear. So
yeah, well, if someone's playing on their phone, it can be a little hard to know whether you're going to get into a composition that they want to be taking in several minutes. So
to be honest, I think he was more interested in Pokemon Go, and all the Pokemon had actually disappeared, and then he decided that he wanted to shoot.
Whenever I'm out as well, I try not to get in people's way as well. And if I'm being less of an inconvenience to other people, then they're less likely to get in my shot as well. For instance, if I'm on a bridge and there's a lot of people walking past, I'll try and put a couple of tripod legs up on the railing and have just one tripod leg which I'm standing over. So they would have to walk into me before actually walking into the tripod. And if someone has to take half a step out of their way to get around me, if that really annoys them, then that's their problem, and it's not going to really bother me at all.
Okay. What about in places, say, like Hopeton Falls or even Beauchamp Falls, where there's a fence, which, the best shots are quite clearly from in front of the waterfalls and around the waterfalls and so forth. And, many photographers are probably guilty of jumping over the fences and to getting into places. What's your thought on this? I mean, people are going to jump over the fences anyway, but our images quite often have far greater exposure than maybe 90% of people who would post on social. We're taking images over fences, we're jumping over fences, we're getting into places that are, it doesn't necessarily, there's no clear indicators to say you're not allowed there, but how do you treat that sort of thing?
It can be a bit tricky, and each time it needs to be weighed up depending on the situation. Most of the times I've been to somewhere like Hopeton Falls or anywhere where there are fences or platforms and it's relatively easy to jump down and go somewhere off those designated walking tracks. It's when there's not too many people around. If it's not very busy or no one else around, I have no worries about just going where I want, really. But if it is quite busy somewhere like the 12 Apostles, which is always crowded any time of the day, I will not go where I'm not supposed to.
Well, I think places like 12 Apostles have got safety fencing there for a reason. It's pretty clear that it's crumbly edges and the ground's quite soft on the edges. You wouldn't want to be jumping over the fences there anyway, and ensuring that you're not only keeping yourself safe but making sure that other people aren't doing stupid things as well, because as soon as you jump over a fence, somebody's quite likely to follow you. I think there's places there like London Bridge on the Great Ocean Road, which again, I mean, there's clear viewing platforms, but it's far safer, and I think the better shots are actually off the viewing platform, but yeah, putting your safety first, as well as making sure that other people aren't going to be putting themselves into dangerous positions, is something to remember there as well.
But I guess the problem with that as well is your version of safety is different to other people's version of safety, and I know this particularly with places like that where I think some areas are safe, other people think, no, they're not safe, and places that I don't think are safe, other people are quite happy to walk around those areas. And the problem with taking photos as well is even if we're going to those places when no one else is around, we're still sharing shots from there. And that can be encouraging for other people to want to go where we went, not because they've seen us there at the time, but because they've seen the shots we've got from there.
Definitely as well. And I think many people, and there's, bigger Instagram accounts, bigger social accounts around, are quite influential in terms of people seeing images and wanting to repeat those as well. The trade-off here is some of us actually promote tourism as well. So we're not necessarily putting ourselves into dangerous positions, but sometimes we are getting into spots where we shouldn't do. But there's a trade-off there to think as well. Like, everybody's got to be responsible for their own actions. If somebody goes and copies you and falls off a crumbly edge at Great Ocean Road because you've jumped over the edge, it's not your fault. But at the same time, getting 30-odd thousand Instagram followers, you can actually potentially, or you've got to think about what other people may do if they start following your actions as well. So
it can be difficult when there are signs there saying that it's dangerous cliffs, it's not very stable, and people do need to look after themselves and make their own choices. And I'm not going to judge people who want to maybe do something that I don't feel is safe, but I also don't want to be judged when I know that what I'm doing is calculated and I've thought about it, and not just blindly running into a situation without thinking of any particular consequences or dangers that might be there.
For sure too. Look, getting into getting off the beaten track is part and parcel, I think, with photography, of trying to get different shots. Social media has made it very, very hard to get unique images. It's very, very difficult on the standard social media circuit, both here in Tassie and I'm sure everywhere in the world now, of actually getting unique content, because the compositions that people shoot have probably been shot thousands of times in many of the most popular places. So as a photographer, quite often it's that search for unique content or unique images, unique angles, different compositions that lead us to actually search for those spots. There's a tight fine line there though of being in places where you shouldn't be, being in places where you should be, influencing other people, impacting on other people, but at the same time ensuring that you're respecting the people around you as well. And it's a tough one.
And we're talking specifically about Australia here as well, whereas if you go to other places in the world, other natural landscapes, they can be a lot more lenient than Australia. And sometimes it can seem that Australia is a bit too overprotective of the population. And there are definitely cases where having that control or that safety is particularly necessary for tourists who may not know the conditions all that well. And we just need to make our own decisions and look after ourselves and not just walk blindly into situations without thinking of consequences.
For sure. Look, speaking of Australia, where are some of your favourite locations in Australia to shoot?
Well, as we've been talking about the Great Ocean Road, there's so many places along there that are fantastic to shoot. Each has its own little unique way of shooting it, or its own little personality in a way. Victoria's just my home state, so I love going places there. Mornington Peninsula and Cape Schanck, there's a lot to shoot down there. And even just around Melbourne and the Yarra River, I love the city and I love the city lights, and it's the mood changes and the scenery changes with the ever-changing weather.
Yeah, definitely. And like Cape Schanck's a great example of awesome photography location. I think it's a photographer's paradise here in Australia because things like the lighthouse are there, Pulpit Rock, and the different compositions and scenes that you can actually get there is pretty incredible.
Another dangerous place as well. It's Cape
Absolutely.
Schanck, especially for the waves, and you have
Definitely.
to be very mindful of where you're stepping there and
Yes.
the waves. So, and that doesn't have any railing or anything or fences to tell you not to go there.
I almost got swept off a rock there. A freak wave came in, and again we'd done put ourselves at risk of jumping over the edge and heading out. A pretty freak wave came in and actually smashed me. It knocked me off my feet. Thankfully, I managed to save my camera gear. Everything got covered in salt water and ruined the rest of that shoot. But that's it's a fantastic location, incredible. I can understand why you would like that, particularly at sunsets. I mean, that just blew my mind when I was there on my last trip over in Victoria. So, but the Melbourne CBD, surely though you'd get sick of shooting the same compositions. I mean, I look at the Melbourne social media hashtags and I see the same shots all the time. What appeals about the Yarra River and the CBD to you most?
There are quite a lot of the popular shots that make the city look quite good, but all along the Yarra, from Princess Bridge up to all the other little bridges along there, Webb Bridge is amazing as well. It's very interesting to shoot at. Especially
when the ground's wet.
Yeah, and get some nice reflections.
Nice reflections there, yeah.
But that's part of the fun, is the challenge of finding something new, something different that people don't often shoot. And to do that in a city is challenging, and I like to head in and check it out.
Well, that's it. I mean, you go down at sunset pretty much any night of the week and you see cameras lined up along the Yarra River there. It's a beautiful place, particularly if you've got some clouds in the sky down there. That's it's a pretty nice spot to shoot. I like, particularly in Australia, places like Horsehead and Camel Rock. They're pretty awesome spots, very popular as well for photographers. So I know that you like both of those locations as well.
Yes, another spot that's dependent on the waves and the tide to get around to Horsehead. It can be a bit tricky.
Definitely. And it's another location where I was there doing an astro shoot with a few other photographers, and we almost got stuck out there at night time. We literally had to run back because the tide was coming in so quickly. Quite dangerous to get in and out of there, but sunrise in those locations are pretty incredible, particularly if you can get some cloud in the sky during sunrise. It's some pretty stunning compositions and nice scenes there. Cradle Mountain's another one here in Tassie for me. It's pretty special. It doesn't kind of matter what the conditions are. It helps if you can see the cradle, which is probably only 60 days of the year for the whole day. But it's so stunning. It feels like you're stepping into another world when you're there. Incredible colours, incredible scene. Around the boathouse is extremely popular. But if you can get up onto Marion's Lookout and even the Twisted Lakes and further around the back, there's some amazing spots and beautiful scenes to see up there. Jim Falls is another one for me here in Australia. Kakadu, wet season. You can't get in there by car. You can't get in there by road at all during wet season. So you've kind of got to fly in by helicopter or by plane. And earlier this year I was in there. It was just stunning, incredible to see and feel the energy of the waterfall flowing there, and having I managed to capture a rainbow at the bottom. I'll never forget that. I mean, it's one of my most memorable and favourite locations that I've ever shot in Australia so far. So
I'd have to agree with the Kakadu during the wet season. I've been there and been in a helicopter flying around, looking at all the different rivers and waterfalls around there, and surrounded by just pockets of rain. And that was one of the best experiences I've ever had, is being up in the air flying around Kakadu.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much water up there during wet season. Obviously from kind of like the end of November through to the beginning of May, a lot of the roads are actually shut due to flooding. One thing that area is well renowned for is crocodiles. So another thing to remember up there is that the rain actually forces crocodiles into waterways where they aren't during dry season. Just the water spreads and allows them to kind of flow through. So typically at the beginning of May, they'll have the park rangers go through and actually do scans of all the water holes and pools before they actually reopen the roads, and reopen a lot of them. But yeah, seeing it from the air is so stunning, just to see how much water, and obviously water is life. So Kakadu just comes to life during wet season. It's I'm planning another trip up there as soon as possible to get back up and do some more aerial stuff up there. It's just amazing. It's such a stunning place to see. So.
And probably a good place to listen or obey the signs and not go swimming in waterholes when it says there may be crocodiles. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Look, we were up there in 42, 43 degree weather earlier this year, and basically 95 to 100% humidity. The easiest way to actually cool down was to go swimming. It's funny, you go and get wet to avoid the stickiness. But yeah, we swam in a few places up there. It was just amazing region of Australia, and the photography options are incredible up there, particularly, as I say, if you can get up in the air. Yellow water billabong was a great one. We actually were on the billabong just as a storm was rolling in. We were hoping to see more crocodiles, but because of the volume of water that was in there, the crocodiles just have far bigger space to move around. Managed to get some really, really cool shots of the sun that we did see, though. But yeah, seeing the storms come in there is amazing. Watching the lightning roll in over the water, so many beautiful things to see up there.
And I guess you mentioned ways of cooling off in the heat. You could probably use this as a segue into talking about cooling down your sensor.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It's something that I saw during the week, and I've never seen this before, which is literally having a cooler, or effectively a refrigerated cooler, attached to your camera for astrophotography.
What is this? Is this a fan or a refrigerated unit? How does this actually work?
It's kind of both. I mean, it's a fan and a refrigerated unit. A company called Prisma Loose Lab have actually modified Nikon D5500 with a cooling unit attached to it. Now, I've seen these types of cooling units before on computer CPUs and computers, particularly for gaming, those sort of things. This is a crazy one, because when I first saw it, I thought about the vibrations that would flow through the camera. But it's apparently, according to one of Australia's leading astrophotographers, these are actually a thing on the market that you can get.
It seems like it'd be an interesting thing to try, and whether it really does help keep the sensor cool and eliminate noise for those longer, dark astro shots.
Well, yeah, for sure. I'd love to see one of these in action. I'd love to see the difference. I've seen some actual sample shots, and we'll put a link up on our episode. It's apparently a thing. All I could see when I see it, though, is I thought about the vibrations that will be fed through, but apparently there's not actually that much vibration, and if using a sturdy tripod, these work really well.
Would we like to mention another thing that seems to be a thing?
Mate, we can mention many things, but Rich Kids app. This is a new one. This is something that got my attention this week.
Walk us
as well.
through this one.
This is like Instagram for rich kids. So if you have ever seen the rich kids of Instagram accounts that go around, where the kids all around the world, or the with rich parents who can kind of afford to let their kids go and do whatever, kind of flaunt their wealth online. This app is basically Instagram for them. Now you can download this for free. It is called Rich Kids app. You can download it for free and view the timeline and view other people's accounts. But if you want to post to this app, it's a €1,000 per month subscription fee to do so. Now, I hear that you've got 2 subscriptions to this already.
Yeah. I just looked under my mattress, found some spare cash lying around, and thought I'd throw it at this app. Well,
look, the whole point of the subscription service is apparently to separate those that are fake wealthy with those that are real wealthy. This seems like a good waste of money to me.
A very good waste of money if you're wanting to have, what was it? It had some like golden frame around every photo that you take.
Well, look, I think you can actually select the different frames that you want. So it's kind of like the Instagram filters, where you can select a different filter to apply over it. These are different frames. Look, this just seems like a joke to me, really. But apparently they've already got quite a few little rich kids using this app and kind of flaunting their wealth through it. And it's another great status symbol of people who've just got nothing better to do with their lives than to show off how much money they've got. From a marketing point of view, I can't believe there's actually a market for this type of thing.
Seems to do all right for itself, I suppose.
That's it. If anybody wants to help us along with finances, we would love to somebody to subscribe to an account for us. This might maybe even use some of our Patreon funding to subscribe to this, so we can start posting our lifestyle on this Rich Kids app.
We'll start a fundraiser to try and get on Rich Kids app.
Oh man, I'm surprised at that one. It's a weird one for me. 1 terabyte SD cards from SanDisk were announced this week as well, or announced at Photokina. So 1 terabyte of storage on an SD card. That's quite a bit of storage.
It's just getting ridiculous with how small storage is becoming. I mean, I've got 1 terabyte hard drives they're not large, they're playing card size, but to get that down to the size of an SD card is just incredible.
How many selfies would 1 terabyte be?
More than you could ever take, I think, especially from just a phone, or definitely if you had one of those in your camera, I could potentially just take limitless selfies of myself for you to find later on.
Look, I use a 64 gig SD card now in each of my cameras, and I can easily take 2,500 images per SD card easily, and that's with a Canon 5D Mark III. 1 terabyte of storage, that's huge. It's like you could almost store your entire photo catalogue on it. That'd be enough storage for some of these rich kids to show off their lifestyle.
I'm sure I could get a calculator open and actually work this out, but it's a lot. 1 terabyte is pretty much...
You're the mathematical genius here, so why do you need a calculator? 1 terabyte divided by 80 meg raw files. Come on, figure this one out.
All right, maybe we'll just edit this down while I spend a few minutes of silence just thinking and calculating in my head.
But yeah, look, 1 terabyte of storage, that'd be pretty cool. I'd like to see what sort of price they put on these. That'd be cool. Apparently it's only a prototype for the moment. But yeah, one terabyte of storage on an SD card. Wow.
It's pretty huge.
It is pretty huge. So, look, we got a listener question to come in this week. We've actually got a few, but we'll filter this down just to one. This might take us a little while to answer, actually. Now, this is from @MattGerarda on Instagram. Matt's been following along, and he wants to know, how do we select the right filters to use, and what is the best way to work out what you need? This is a good question. I mean, we both shoot with filters. We both kind of use filters and shoot with long exposure photography. So now by filters, we're talking about the type of filters you screw on, not the types of filters that these rich kids will be using on their app to put their gold frames around them.
Yeah, or ones that you swipe across and just look at what adds a nice or not so nice haze over a potentially good image. So
yeah, look, I think with filters, it kind of depends on what the type of... Well, two things. One is the amount of light and lighting conditions that you're in, but also the type of effect that you're looking to achieve. I commonly use... My three most widely used filters would be 6-stop ND, a 10-stop ND, and a 0.9 soft grad. I also use a polarizer quite a lot. Now, a stop of light is actually a physical calculation. So calculating 6 or 10 stops difference in terms of exposure time is actually a calculation that you can do. I recommend getting a neutral density filter app for this, and we'll put up some links within the episode guide for this as well. But just as an example, so a 10-stop filter, if you were shooting, so if your standard exposure time by doing your light meter reading prior to screwing a filter on, and by this I mean set your camera into aperture priority mode. Say you're shooting in ISO 100 and your camera is automatically calculating 1 second. 10 stops of light difference at ISO 100, 1 second exposure time is 16 minutes. So 16 minutes is a 10 stop is what you would actually be shooting at for a 10 stop filter. That's quite a long time. So
a long time to wait to see whether it's actually worked.
No, absolutely. And so at 6 stops, if the exposure time was 1 second, it's 1 minute of exposure time that you need to correctly expose an image. Now, these are taking into account a couple of things. One is a consistent lighting across your entire exposure. By this, I mean, consider it sunrise. When you start shooting, and if you were shooting with a 10-stop filter, and you had a 1 second exposure time, which was calculated at 10 stops at 16 minutes, the amount of light at the beginning of the image is far less than the amount of light that will probably be available at the end of the image. Very much the opposite in sunrise. So if you started shooting before the sunset,
Yep.
And the sun was dropping, and it dropped below the horizon, 16 minutes is actually quite a long time where the light can change. So you need to factor into changing lighting conditions. So these calculations are calculated considering even lighting across the entire exposure. So a 16-minute exposure, for example, at 10 stops is going to give you really streaky clouds, super silky water, all of those types of things which kind of introduce movement or show a sense of time in an image. Whereas the 1 minute exposure on a 6-stop is going to probably show less movement, but choosing the right filter really comes down to the lighting conditions themselves as well. How do you calculate this yourself, or how would you make that decision yourself?
Well, the way I see filters and landscape photography is kind of opposite to studio photography, where in a studio you're building up light, so you're adding lights to a particular scene. And with landscape photography, you already have light, so your purpose is to control that light using filters by limiting the amount of light entering your camera. And the best way to do this is to just take test shots as well and see, have a look at your histogram, where different peaks are in that. Usually the sky is a bit brighter, and you'll probably see that as a peak over to the right side of your histogram. And seeing how far away that is from the rest of the image, you can work out whether you need to use a soft grad over the sky or a hard grad, depending on whether you've got a nice straight horizon, and how far away that separated is, whether you need a 1, 2, or 3 stop soft grad, and also to look at anything that might be moving in the image. If there's nothing moving in your scene, if there's no clouds, there's no water movement, no people walking around, then going for a long exposure is not going to be necessary. If anything, it's just probably going to make the image not look as crisp or sharp. So look at any kind of movement, such as clouds, if the water is quite turbulent, or if there's any cars for light trails, anything that will move through the scene, and see how long it takes for that movement to go through your image. For instance, with people walking around, if you're wanting to blur people out of your scene, if you have a look at how long it takes for them to walk a certain distance, even just past some background images, then you only need a few seconds really to blur them out of the image.
For sure. Yeah, it just depends on what sort of effect you're really looking to get. For me, when I'm shooting waterfalls in particular, I'll generally always use a polarizer. I think a polarizer is typically 2 stops of light difference, so you can actually use it as an ND filter, but it also kind of adds saturation to greens in the surrounding area around a waterfall. But I may also, depending on the conditions and depending on the lighting conditions around the waterfall itself, add either a 6-stop and a soft grad afterwards. Now, with soft grad filters or hard grad filters, or basically graduated filters if you like, remembering that the sky is typically, just as a rule, would be 2 to 3 stops of light brighter than your foreground. So a soft grad or a hard grad filter is actually used to help balance the sky against the foreground, to bring the exposure of the sky back level with the foreground. So that's your main aim, particularly around sunsets and sunrises. This is extremely useful, but during the day as well. Some of my favorite shots I've taken with either a 0.9 or a 1.2 soft grad. The basic answer for this for me would just be to try and work out what effect you're looking for with the filters, and ensuring that you're actually calculating what the exposure difference is by using a particular filter. When I first started using filters, I made a big mistake of just guessing the numbers rather than actually considering it as a calculation. As I say, there are calculators which will help make this easier for beginners. Guessing those numbers kind of led to me to really just have a low success rate in my images. So it's important to know what filters you're using. There are some more extreme filters on the market, 15 and 20 stop filters. These are pretty crazy. I've seen some calculations around where with a 15 or 20 stop filter, if you have a 1 minute exposure time, you're looking at 17 to 24 hours to actually expose an image correctly. Now that's pretty crazy. You know, that's a long time.
You don't want anyone walking on the boardwalk and knocking your tripod during that time. It's a long time to avoid
sure. I can't think of too many uses that I would personally have for that sort of exposure time, but a 15 and 20 stop filter can actually help you also shoot long exposures right in the middle of the day.
And potentially get longer exposures with shallow depths of field as well. So if you've got quite an open aperture, you can try and play around with having the shallow depth of field, but still get a long exposure, which normally you wouldn't be able to get if your aperture is quite open.
For sure, and a common, exactly what you're talking about there would be for me for aiming for about the half-second mark with water movement. As a rule, half a second to 0.8 of a second gives that really dramatic look with water where it's moving but it's not silky smooth. So I would quite often use a 6-stop filter to do so, and then basically using my ISO and aperture to try and get as close as I can to the half a second mark with that. So I mean, the filters are something it takes a lot of practice to get used to, but remembering there are guides and there are actually tools and apps around to help calculate that exposure time as well. So.
Cool. Well, I hope we've answered your question, and keep writing in, asking us some questions. We'll do our best to answer everybody's, and you're going to be quite busy over the next month or so. What have you got coming up?
Yeah, I am. Yeah. So, I mean, over the next week, we've got lucky enough to be part of a campaign with one of our local helicopter companies. which is kind of giving me the opportunity to get up in the air without my drone. So I'm going to be up in a big drone, kind of taking images all around Tassie and kind of showcasing some of our most beautiful regions, which is great. That'll be a campaign that will launch about a month from this week.
Helicopter, how retro.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, look, I'm hoping that they just give me the helicopter to keep afterwards. I think that can be my fee for doing this shoot for them. But yeah, look, I'm also spending a bit of time travelling around Tassie over the next few weeks as well. Bruny Island, amazing part of Tasmania, fantastic. I can't even express how beautiful it is over there, but also the East Coast, heading up to the East Coast, taking a few days off and hopefully getting up there with my partner and doing a bit of exploring around a particular part up there that we haven't done too much exploring of. Got some photo workshops coming up, got a photo tour, and then the big one of the Overland Track 4 weeks from now, which I literally was just this morning out shopping for, trying to get all my equipment. I've had some great tips come in from some very knowledgeable people throughout the week after our call out last week.
Have you worked out what you're going to pack?
I have actually.
Have you hired a Sherpa?
No, I haven't. I've actually had a few offers though of people who would want to come along and take our gear. Thank you for the offers, but this time, on this occasion, I'll just have to do without it. The other guys might not like it too much if somebody's carrying my gear and not theirs. But yeah, look, I've some great tips over the week in terms of lightweight packing and ensuring that I keep my pack weight down to below 25 kilos for the walk. Apparently that's even to the extreme, but that's kind of my target for 6 days of traveling. So
still
again,
a big weight to have on your back for a long time.
Yeah, I'm going to try as much as I can to keep it down far below that. But yeah, I'm out this morning shopping for really lightweight sleeping bags and even just little things like travel towels, microfiber towels that weigh pretty much nothing, foldable cups, foldable plates, waterproof bags for my camera gear just to make sure that doesn't get wet, solar charger, things like extra batteries just to try and ensure that I've got enough to shoot for the 6 days. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to that trip, but between now and then it's going to be a pretty busy time. Definitely looking forward to over the next few weeks, and obviously we'll be recording some more Project RAWcast, so hopefully we'll get some more user questions or listener questions, and plenty more announcements to come within Project RAWcast as well.
And we are now on YouTube, so you can listen to us via YouTube. We don't really have any videos up at the moment, but you can still listen to us through there. And if you haven't already, check us out on patreon.com/Project RAWcast if you want to support us and keep us going through the warm summer months.
Yep. And again, look, congratulations to Jess Ward Photo for last week's competition, which we'll be sending you out an EC 100mm V5 kit. Don't forget to check out our social accounts for this week. A big thanks to Australian Photography Magazine for the 12-month subscription. So make sure that you're entering our comp by mentioning us, hashtagging us, and submitting a new image to our feeds this week. So,
all right, I think that's just about a wrap.
Well, that's episode 3. Hopefully, we get to record episode 4.
All right, I'll catch you later.
All right, mate. See you. Bye.
See ya.